All right. If I look off to the side, that's because I'm looking at my second screen that has the slides on it, not because I don't want to look at you guys. Welcome back. We are officially back at it, as I'm sure you all are aware, for the 2020-2021 school year. We do have a lot of things going on, so we're going to try and make this as helpful for you as possible. Again, as we move through this, if you don't mind making sure your mics are muted. And like I said, if you want some multiple tabs, have those handy. And we'll try to get you some useful things to drop in there. You should be seeing my slide deck as well. So again, there's the bit.ly for the slide deck if you need it. One more time. We're gonna go through a lot of things today. We're gonna cover some of the components of our new TEACS resource system curriculum platform. We're going to cover some tools to help you along with that curriculum. We're gonna look at Unit 1 out of the gate, some things to notice about Unit 1. It does some things a little differently than we've done them in the past. And so I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to not only look at that, but also in some breakout rooms, kind of discuss your gut reactions and how you think you would start planning for the kids to work through this material. And all along the way, we will have time for questions, comments, and anything we can do to help you orient yourselves around this material so you're ready to go next week. If you don't know me, I'm Jordan Ferguson. I'm one of the ELAR curriculum instructional specialists with the Curriculum and Instruction Department. My focus areas are grades 6 through 8. So a lot of people wonder why grade 6 isn't with elementary. Well, as far as the state is concerned, 6 is a secondary grade. Their standards are grouped with 7th and 8th, and they look very similar. So when it came to writing curriculum last year, we had some staff turnover, and I asked to pick up 6th grade so that there could be continuity between the 3 grades. I also work heavily with our elementary group to make sure that it has continuity with 5th grade. Speaking of the elementary group, Sandra Redding and Nikki Walls are our other our elementary specialists right now. We're in the process of bringing on a 3rd specialist. Throughout the year, if you need to reach out to any of the 3 of us, you can. Things that are specific about your 6th grade documents, though, you might want to try me first, just because they will end up asking me anyway. All right. Also with us this morning is Shimon Forbes. She's one of our cadre members. She's helping me out with the chat, keeping an eye on that, and keeping an eye on the clock so I don't ramble on too long on any one topic. All right, very quickly, getting through some things. You've probably seen these before, but we want to make sure we're all on the same page. In AISD, our goal is that 100% of our students graduate exceptionally prepared for college career and citizenship. We know that our success depends on all of these things you see in the box on the left. But the bottom line is it depends on the understanding and believing that our students can excel. Hey folks, again, just one more time, if you don't mind muting your microphones, we're getting some feedback from somebody.
I can't get in. Mr. Ferguson, you should be able to mute them as you're the host.
That's right, I forget I can do that. All powerful, thank you. All right, so now as we move on, our priorities here again are creating a quality learner experience. We want to grow and develop people, and that's not just our students, that's us as teachers as well. And again, we want to make sure our students are career and college ready. Our cultural tenets, these are the things that guide all of our interactions, whether it's with each other or with our students. I encourage you to pick one out today that you want to kind of be faithful to, both in this session and any other sessions you have for the rest of the day. I think some big ones today, we're doing some new things this year. So promoting risk-taking is going to be big, owning our work always. And again, responding positively to differences and getting better every day. You know, this is going to be a stretch this whole school year for some people. And so remaining positive and just trying to be the best we can be are going to be key elements to what we accomplish this year. Curriculum and instruction, our mission is to partner with teachers to make sure that we have growth and success for all learners. We want to make sure we've provided the best curriculum possible to you to make sure that happens. Our department goal in the ELAR department is that our students will critically summarize, infer, and make connections to comprehend text. And we utilize the writing process to compose thoughtful and engaging text. Lots of things we want to make sure our kids can do. It all starts today. Our norms, basically we're asking that we're all polite, nice, respectful humans as we move through the day. I think for me, the big one here is really connecting reflection and learning to action. Today is all about how can we take our things from today into our plan and for the year, and that's what we're going to try and do. All right, so we're jumping in again. If you have questions throughout this, drop them in the chat. We want to answer those as we go and make sure there aren't any questions. We're going to be talking right now about TEKS Resource System. If you're unaware of TEKS Resource System, this is a curriculum platform that we have adopted. TEKS Resource System is used by, I believe it's over 70% of the districts in the state. And one of the big reasons we wanted to go to this system is that we have noticed in the last few years a lot of our students coming and going during the school year. And we were really proud of the curriculum we were writing, put a lot of hard work into it, and thought it was pretty solid. However, it wasn't necessarily lined up with what other districts are doing. So when we had students come in, we found that we're having to backtrack, or we had kids who were missing whole sections of material altogether. So TEKS Resource System, being used by such a large portion of the state, allows us to know that when kids come in, there's a really good chance that we're right in line with where their former district was, and the same for kids that move out of our district. We want to look today at the importance of planning for our instruction. I think we can all agree that planning is going to be a critical piece of what we do, and this is no different. Our curriculum is really made up of three components: a written curriculum, which is what we get from the state. It's our TEKS, the core of what we need our kids to know. Our tested curriculum also comes from the state in that assessment piece. We really want to focus on the taught curriculum and how can we utilize TEKS Resource System, what we're providing on Curriculum Central, and frankly, the creativity and genius that lives in our teachers to provide our kids the best experience to accomplish what they need. All right. Now, this is just a quick model for planning for instruction that aligns to T-test. These planning dimensions involve standards and alignment, data and assessment, knowledge of our students and activities. And when we put all of this together, this kind of gives us our focus for what we're wanting to do with planning. I like this quote: lesson planning over and above the norm is a key driver of student achievement. This is just a graphic very quickly to show you kind of how different things are going to line up with our curriculum. The blue circle are the TEKS Resource System components. The red box and circle are going to be what falls in our companion documents that we'll talk about a little later. And they work together, and there is overlap that should help you with any planning you need to accomplish. But first, we're going to look at our TEKS Resource System component. So where do I find the curriculum? Our curriculum is housed on TEKS Resource System. I'm going to drop some information into the chat very quickly on how to access TEKS Resource System. We do know there has been some issues with getting into TEKS Resource System with personalized accounts. We are aware of that. If you can't get in on a personal account or something's gone wrong with your communication with them, you feel free to use the information in the chat. In the interim, I will tell you that the difference here between this generic login, this is a demo account, and what you would have in your personal account is in your personal account, you can favorite material, you can save it, you can create assessment. The demo account will not allow you to do that because there's going to be dozens of people using it at any given time. But if you want to open a tab and have TEKS Resource System available, you're welcome to do that. We'll be getting there shortly. All right. Now, what I would like to do before we dig into this too deeply is I want to give you a chance to get into the TEKS resource system IFD. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a second. Again, there is the login information if you need it. It's TEKS resource system. Oh, no, go back. And it looks a little something like this, teksresourcesystem.net, and it's going to ask you to log in. This page is the page you'll either use your personal credentials or the ones in the chat. When you've signed in, you'll select 6th grade. In the box over here on the right, it says quick search. And then you will pick English language arts. Again, I usually do this at the front end. If you are not here for 6th grade English language arts and reading, you will want to go find the correct section. The IFDs, once you've done your search, it'll bring you to a page like this with these blue stripes. You're going to want to click on Instructional Focus Document. And then I would click on Unit 01, Building Foundational Reading and Writing Processes. What I want to give you a minute to do, actually 7 minutes to do, is I want to give you a chance to scroll through this document. And I want you to look for anything that stands out to you. Look at the different components, what's included in each section. What do you like? What confuses you? The question in the chat, once we are in, do we need to change your password? Only if you're in a personal account. If you are in the district account, we're obviously not changing that password. That is something for use the CI at AISD.net to log in, that needs to stay. But if you are logged in with your personal teacher account, yes, you can change the password. I would make it something easy to remember, like what you use for any of your other Rapid ID applications. So anyway, so when you're in the IFD, scroll through that. It looks like a lot of material, but it's a lot of really good material. I'm going to give you, again, 7 minutes, and then I'm going to call you back, and we're going to dig through this a little more deeply and look at the components and how we can use it. Before we get started, any questions?
Yes, if you don't have a login, could you show us how to log in as like the demo?
Yes, I will log the demo. I will drop the demo back in the chat.
Thank you.
Really, you go to teksresourcesystem.net, the link that I just put in the chat right now, and you'll use the username and password there. And then select your grade level. Right. I'm going to start our timer and it's not 7 minutes in a lot of time. You may not get through everything, but scroll around and read through the pieces that catch your attention. And we will resume in 7 minutes. That time. There we go. We've kind of looked at the IFD. We're going to hold on to that knowledge and hold on to that tab. We're going to come back to it here in a second. We're going to talk again a little bit moving forward about backwards planning process. Kind of the 3 big steps we want to look at here for backwards design are identifying the desired results. What should our students know and be able to do after this unit? Stage 2, determine acceptable evidence of learning. How are they going to show us they know those things and can do those things? And step 3, plan learning experiences. What do we need to help get students from A to B? This isn't review. This is something most of us know and are aware of, but we want to keep that on the forefront of our minds when we're trying to plan with this, because that IFD is a really thick document with a lot of material. So how do we take all of that and build these quality learning experiences we're talking about? The district, as we began adopting TEKS resource system, one of the things that got developed quickly in the process was a backwards design template to help teachers with backwards planning using the material there. I am dropping a link in the chat to this document you see a screenshot of. That link will take you to a Google Doc. It'll ask you to, it'll force you to make a copy, and then you'll have one for your very own to save in your Google Drive. we're going to be looking at this document here for the next few minutes in conjunction with that IFD. But the goal was we wanted to give teachers something that they could take notes, they could get their thinking organized as they try to plan a unit, just to help things crystallize a little easier. So what we're going to do now, we're going to walk through this document, the components. If you've opened up your own document, you're welcome to type in it some of the things that you see pop up on the screen. You don't have access, fantastic. Give me just 1 second to open my own copy, and I'm just gonna make it a little easier for you. As long as I have permission, which I should. The link should have asked you to make a copy. Did it not ask you to do that?
No, it said that we needed access.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my copy that I just made for myself. And then you guys can just work off of my copy and it'll be fine. Copy the link into the chat, guys. I apologize. This worked great yesterday. Everyone that needed to access it, accessed it. I'm going to copy.
Can we find a copy on curriculum or somewhere else, or just from you right now?
Right now, just this one should work. I just dropped it in the chat. My copy I made for myself. It should ask you to make a copy as well.
No, it says we can't open the file.
Because it hates me. Okay, let's try this one more time. And if not, this will be something I'll just have to figure out, and then I'll have to share it with you later.
That one worked.
Yes, okay, as soon as I made it where you could edit it. I would encourage you not to edit this document. Please make your own copy before you type in it, because now this is the one I'm gonna have to share for the next 2 days. So make a copy of it for yourself. I apologize for the headaches, you know, best laid plans and all that. Okay, so now that that's up and running, what we want to do is I want to walk through each of these sections of the document. And yes, Shaman, I know that I'm almost out of time and I'm not even near where I need to be, so I'm going to make up for it later. Just so you can see how this works in conjunction with both the IFD and what's on Curriculum Central. All right. So the screenshot you should see in my sharing right now is just the top half of the document. We want to start with the established goals section. So the establishing goals section is all about giving what are our learning goals, what are the understandings we need our students to have after this lesson or unit. So this is the big picture. If I'm working with fiction, I want to make sure I'm putting in there students understand critical genre characteristics of fiction. And then I'm going to kind of list the things I really want. I want them to know plot. I want them to be able to understand character traits. I want them to be able to understand theme. Boom, it's going to go here, right? You can even break it down where I'm just going to do this planning for plot. And then you can get even more specific there. Where would I find the stuff to go in the established goals? I would use the unit overview of the IFD on TEKS resource system, and also the recommended learning progression that's housed on Curriculum Central. As I click into this document and you see the words pop in, the red is the description of that box. The blue will be a TRS, TEKS resource system resource. And the green is actually going to be something housed on Curriculum Central. All right. So once we've determined what are our goals for this unit, we're going to move over to transfer. Students will be able to independently use their learning to do what? What do we want them to accomplish? So this refers to how students are going to transfer knowledge into action. How are they going to apply it for themselves? So we would get this also from TRS. There's a section overarching understanding and questions. And so we would look at those questions and we would kind of determine how are they going to move this forward from there. We also want to identify for students the meaning that they're going to pull from the learning. So we're going to start with understandings. Okay? All understandings, again, is just big ideas, specific concepts. that we want our kids to get as they walk through the lesson. But we also want to ask some essential questions. What provocative questions are going to spur our students towards inquiry, towards finding the answers they need, and ultimately reaching their goals? Both of these meaning components, I'm going to share with you in a minute. Also, sorry, side note, if not in a minute, I'll send it out through Strive to you later, a document that has all of the red already filled in. So if you're trying to type those big red sections, don't. I can send it to you later. We would find the meaning also in unit understandings and questions. Okay, another section in the IFD. And that's where we can locate those pieces. And then lastly for this slide, acquisition. Okay, students will know that box refers to, again, knowledge they're going to acquire. It's similar to the understand piece. We also want them to be skilled at certain things. That refers to the skills students will acquire. This seems like a fine line between understanding and doing, but we do need to delineate between the two. What do our kids know, and then what do they do with it, so that we're not just being really vague as we're putting together these experiences.
We do have a question in the chat. Can you what the colors mean?
Absolutely. So the red are descriptions, and again, I'll be sharing a document probably after the course. I'll share a document that has these red pieces already populated. The blue, it signals that it's in the TEKS resource system material, and the green signals that it's something that you can find on Curriculum Central. Okay, good questions. So this acquisition piece, we can find those in the performance assessments. And we'll look at performance assessments more closely here coming up in just a bit. Stage 2 of planning, how will students demonstrate what they know and can do? So first, before we do anything, we need to establish our evaluative criteria. What are we looking for to know students get it? Okay. If you're using something like the performance assessments in the TEKS resource system IFD, all of those performance assessments come with rubrics, which have that criteria spelled out for you. If you're generating your own tasks, you'll want to have a rubric or some sort of model piece where you can show kids, this is what we want you to be able to see and do, to clearly communicate those expectations. Performance tasks. Again, we want to refer to specific tasks that will help students, again, crystallize and display our desired understandings, so we can know if they've reached their goals or need a little extra work. We can find those again in the performance assessments. We can find it in our key vocabulary portions. One thing that's not on here that you can also use, we've provided a lot of performance tasks in our resources sections for the companion documents. So that'll be on Curriculum Central. We'll show you those here shortly. Other evidence. Other evidence is any type of evidence that you use to show student understanding. Again, unit summative assessments and formative assessments, those are housed in the companion documents as well, just to show you, okay, here's some other options. These are some ways you can do it and get through things. Our third portion of this is planning our learning experiences. Once we've defined what do our kids need to know, what are our goals, what are some things they can do to reach those goals, we want to develop our plan, our step-by-step plan of how this is going to work. Okay, so that's exactly what this encompasses on individual learning activities and instructional strategies and moves that we're going to use to help students along the way. This section is probably not big enough for you to do all the things you want to do, and we know that. They were trying to fit everything on one piece of paper, so that box is there for that size. We just ask, again, as you work through this planning, fit what you can here. You get the point of what this section is for. It's all about really fleshing out those tasks you need to accomplish. We would grab things for this from our suggested instructional materials, our interventions and extensions, all of which are on the companion document on Curriculum Central. Okay. I know this was is a crash course through TEKS resource system. If you've never looked at it before, that was really fast and really rough, as well as going through this learning document to help you with planning. I wish we had more time, but we just don't. If you have any questions about this so far, again, drop them in the chat. And I'm going to stick around after the session is over for a few minutes. If you have a session you need to get to, you'll be welcome to leave. But if you want to stick around and ask some deeper questions, I'll be here. So don't stress about that. Before we move on, are there any just pressing questions about this? Most teachers, I think, understand the backwards planning process and all of that. If you're an administrator, a coach or something, this is, again, is a piece that you can take into your PLCs and work through with teachers. Teachers, work through this on your own. But it's just a tool to help you really solidify your plans. Again, this is, again, a document to just, image just to show you this is how some of our stuff is breaking down. We focused on the blue mostly for this first portion, and we'll get into the red more as the session continues in the actual companion document, which is where we're going now. So in the past, we've provided all the curriculum documents have been generated by Arlington ISD. This year, again, as you obviously we're transitioning to TEKS resource system, but we still wanted to provide some pieces that TRS doesn't provide for you because it's adopted by so many districts. They can't prop up all the resources you may need. So we have tried to supplement that with a companion document. This is just a quick look at what a companion document looks like. This is the 8th grade document for the first unit, but we'll look at the 6th grade here in a minute. There are several components to this piece that should help you as we move through. First, at the top, you'll notice a unit summative assessment. We'll get into assessments more in a minute, but in most units, there will be a link up here at the top to an assessment housed on Curriculum Central. It is on Curriculum Central. It is, to answer the question in the chat, if you go to the 6th grade ELAR section, when you scroll down to unit resources, click on whichever unit you're looking at, and you will see a resources folder. You will see an ELAR and SLAR resources, depending on if you're a dual language course or a bilingual campus. And you will see learning progressions and a companion document. And you'll see those both again in ELAR and SLAR. So that's where these are housed. What we will look at here again, unit summative at the top, that is housed, the document itself is housed on Curriculum Central. However, if you're using those in a face-to-face setting, those are always in Polaris. And so you would have your kids fill out the answer documents and scan them in. We're waiting word on testing department how they prefer us to handle that because the keys are still going to be in Polaris. They're not going to be posted for you to use or to print. So, but those tests are going to be meant for at the end of the unit after you've covered all of your learning. In the companion document, you also have a link that will take you to the learning progression. The learning progression is just going to be a step-by-step walk through one possible way to cover all of the standards that are included in the IFD for this unit. And there are always a ton of standards. We realize that. We've tried to put this in an order that makes sense. And then below that, formative assessments. We obviously can't list all the ways that you want to work through information with your students, but we've tried to provide several options just to help get the ideas flowing on how we can assess some students and do some real-time tracking on if they're understanding the concepts we're working through. Most of these ideas can also be turned into, given our virtual learning environment, these can be adapted to fit inside of Canvas or to use another approved learning tool.
We have another question in the chat.
Yes, I saw. Yes, we will be using both Curriculum Central and TEKS resource system. You'll notice when you go to Curriculum Central, there is not as much there because we do want you to use the TEKS resource system, IFD, and other documents, but we have provided some resources. And as we keep moving, you'll see that here in a second. I'm not sure why it's not being seen on Curriculum Central. Here in a minute, time permitting, I'll take you to Curriculum Central and we'll look at it. I'll show you exactly where to find it. will there be a link to embed summative informative assessments into our Canvas module? So right now, no, I'm not providing a link like that, but you will have access to the resource, do modifications, and embed it yourself, yes. Whether some of our documents, this is as good a time as any to talk about this. As we're going to move through, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. So this is the suggested instructional materials. This should look familiar. We've provided recommended resources in the past in our AISD instructional focus documents. And we're doing the same thing. The difference is instead of just a bulleted list, we've given some statements to give context to what each resource does and how you could possibly use it. I will tell you right now, for the first couple of units, these were generated prior to the decision to go virtual. So some of these resources are going to look like pencil paper. And that could be very frustrating for you, and I apologize. We have not had the time to go backwards and change the resources that we've propped up for you. However, most of these can be adapted in a Google Doc or inside of Canvas in one of those tools. We're using H5P, our new, it's a new component we have adopted for Canvas. A lot of these resources can be adjusted using those tools where you can embed them very easily into Canvas. You can embed the things here. The problem is in the first unit, for example, a lot of these charts or graphic organizers are actually PDFs from HMH. And if you just drop that straight into Canvas as is, you'll notice the students won't be able to click and enter anything into it. So that's where I'm apologizing and saying they may need to be modified. However, the visualized graphic organizer, for example, if you click into it and look at it, it's very easy to turn that into a Google Doc by dropping in a table, and a 2-column table where students put the text they read and then they type out what their mental image is that popped in their brains. That would be very easy to embed that Google Doc into Canvas, where students would go in, they'd click on it, it would open the Google Doc, they would fill their answers and then share it back with you. Or they could just put it in a discussion board post. I mean, there are ways that we can do this. And as you move through the year, you will notice these resources actually transition more to pieces that you can use virtually and embed a little easier. Again, I apologize. Again, just like you guys are kind of running around crazy right now trying to figure out how to do this, the curriculum, and we are also trying to figure out how to adapt our materials for you to make them the most useful components they can be. So here's the suggested instructional materials piece. Again, there's a lot of links for both reading and writing. We also are adding in interventions and extensions for you to help extend the learning when needed or go back and reteach some pieces. A lot of the things we're using right now are out of the reading and writing strategies books. I realize at home you may not have these handy, but they are available in your campus libraries. Contact your coaches and administrators and you may be able to get in there to get a copy if you don't already have one. Down there at the bottom, we are including a language acquisition link. This is provided by our World Languages Department. They've done some fantastic work trying to provide the best resources possible for our teachers who are teaching any of our ELLs, period, but also our bilingual teachers. That's where our SLAR resources that are posted will come. So again, I know that was fast. There's a lot of other material we've got to cover, so I'm going to continue. Again, drop questions in the chat. We'll get to them here in a minute. Our need to knows. Just very quickly, when you're working through this TRS unit, TEKS are listed in a sequential order, not necessarily the best order for instruction. Okay, the back portion of the TRS unit has all the standards listed, and it's got the standard, and it's got some vocabulary pieces you need, and even some possible ways to work through each standard or to demonstrate each standard. That doesn't mean that's necessarily the most logical order to teach it in. So again, refer to the companion documents and especially that recommended learning progression. We've tried to put that in a logical order for you as you work through pieces, make the sequence a little more authentic. I'm not expecting you to read this whole checklist now. If you've got the slides, you can come back to this and look at it. I'll drop the slides in again here at the end of the course. This is just a checklist to think through as you're planning, some components to remember to go back and look at to help inform your planning process. next steps. Again, there will be continuous learning, both ELAR content related continuous learning, as well as some around TRS. Be on the lookout for those. There is an assessment creator Canvas course. I didn't touch on assessment creator yet because we're going to look at it here in a minute. There's actually a tool in TRS where you can generate your own assessment, whether multiple choice, short answer response. There's a lot of different options for you, and there will be a Canvas course to walk you through how to do that. It's a really great tool. We aren't doing bundle assessments because TRS doesn't do bundles like we've done in the past. So if you want those periodic smaller checkpoint assessments, the assessment creators where you'll do that. And lastly, just continuing the planning process. We know that from now to the end of the year, we're going to be planning constantly. Just keep going with that and seek out help if you need it. We're here to serve you any way we can. All right, that was a lot. We're going to go through some things that are maybe a little more dry, but these are some necessary pieces we want you to know, given the fact that so much learning is going to be happening virtually moving forward. Again, if you have questions during this, do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. Shamon's helping me keep an eye on that. And we want to make sure that you have clarity around these pieces. We're going to start off with approved AISD tech applications. There's been a lot of confusion about what are some things we can use in our classrooms, or I really love going here, so I'm using this website, but my kids have to make their own accounts. Well, it's some sticky legal issues. So we want to highlight some things about this. I'm dropping a link right now in the chat that will take you to the Technology Integration and Innovation Department's resources on the district website. And there's a tab, the first thing there is approved web apps, and that's what we want to talk about right now. So as we go through this, why approved web apps? That's the big question. Why can't I just use the things I like and the things that work? We're going to tell you right now. So first of all, approved web apps have been vetted by multiple departments, including legal. Okay, and the reason that this has to go through legal is if it is an app or a website that requires students to make an account in the terms of service, it's probably not on the approved list. FERPA, all of our federal privacy laws about educational records and student information and all of that, requires us to not let kids go and make just anything, any accounts they want, because they're releasing that to third-party information, and they're minors, so they technically don't have the legal standing to do that. So we want to make sure we're looking at the approved applications, okay? I know in the secondary level, one of the biggest issues with this is no red ink. I don't know if anyone uses the no red ink platform for writing instruction. It's a really great resource. The problem is students have to create accounts. Teachers have to create accounts. And our district legal department has said no, that we can't do that. However, Quill, if you've ever used quill.com, Quill is approved. And in fact, I think it's even on the endorsed list for the district. So it's, we encourage you to consult that list of approved web apps before really going to town and embedding things into your Canvas course. We're asking students to go out on the internet to places.
We do have a question in the chat. I think it goes back to the companion document.
Yes, I will do that here in just a minute. We're actually going to do some breakout work, and I will show how to get to the companion document before I send you off into the realm of breakout room. So again, this is what I kind of mentioned a second ago. If it requires a user to create an account, it must be on our list of approved apps. Some of these apps and websites are going to sell that information, and it's in the terms of service that nobody ever reads. And so our legal has read all of that, and that's why those may not be approved. If you have read the terms of service and you feel that thing is worth doing, you always can submit a request to get an app approved, and the technology and legal departments will hop on that and check them out as quickly as possible. I mentioned the approved web apps or the endorsed apps list. There is actually a searchable list of endorsed web applications that the district actually encourages you to use. I'm dropping that link in the chat right now as well. This app is actually really great because you can filter the endorsed applications by content area, by grade band, by a lot of different things, and filter it, search it, work through. It's a little easier to use than the approved list. The approved list, you can't filter like that, but this endorsed list, you can. So it's an ongoing list. It's getting updated and modified as different apps are being moved into the approved category. It's a really useful tool, and I encourage you to check out those resources, especially given the fact that so many of our students are going to be having to do some things online, and we need to provide them with good options and good ways to do that. Do online learning. Oh, and here we go. All right, so before we move on to copyright, which is really dry, questions about the web applications. That was very quick, very brief, but we wanted to put those approved apps on your radar. We don't want you getting in trouble later because you use something that required someone to put their information out there, and then the student information is causing problems later. Okay. I will have to double check ReadWorks. I thought it was on the approved list, but that's something I'll need to go and double check. I'm going to write it down on a Post-it to make sure I actually go back and check that and get back with you. I know that had been a sticking point. I will look into ReadWorks. If you've already created an account on apps, what we're saying is you really just can't, we can't ask students to use that material during instruction, or go to those websites during instruction. So if you have an account, I'm not telling you to never use your account. I would use maybe a personal account, personal email. They prefer that the district emails not be linked into these unapproved sites or unapproved apps. I know that's not necessarily what we want to hear, but that's right now we're about trying to make sure we've covered all bases and we're not putting ourselves in compromising legal positions. As teachers, that's the last thing we need, right? We have enough issues without creating more for ourselves. Which brings us to copyright. There is a really, really thick copyright presentation that if you want, you can email me and ask for it and I will send it to you. We've tried to boil that down to a much shorter, like 5 to 8 slide presentation instead of the 40 slides that the library and legal departments have put together for us. And so this is important because we're putting a lot of things into Canvas, and there are some very definite rules about copyright and what we can actually post in online learning and in our face-to-face classrooms for that matter. So first, this is important because as an AISD employee, when you accept the handbook, you are accepting that you will comply with copyright law. And the hard truth is you can be fired if you violate copyright. You can lose your job. It is a legal issue. If you Googled school districts and copyright, you would find articles about districts across the country who a teacher posted something, didn't realize it was a problem, and then that teacher ended up getting fired while the district paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars to the publishing company and or authors for using something that they didn't have permission to use. So we want to make sure that we are crystal clear on this copyright issue. Whew. It's not my favorite topic, but it is necessary. Most likely, it's going to end in a lawsuit. Just boil it down to that. Fair use. The big thing everyone says is, but what about fair use? Fair use is great. So fair use is a legal defense in court. It's not an excuse to not cite something correctly or to use something you don't have permission for. All fair use does is it allows for limited use of copyrighted material. So,
I'm sorry, Jordan, what about the novels?
So novels will get a little tricky because we bought those for face-to-face use in the classroom setting, and we purchased those to be used there. It is a gray area. It's a little more murky when we start talking about using things in the online setting, and we're going to get to how we can use those some in virtual learning. Hopefully I answer that question. And yes, hopefully we'll get there. So just bear with me as we move through this. So 4 factors of fair use. There's 4 things to keep in mind if I'm going to try and say that I'm using something using the fair use principle. First, the purpose and character of use. Am I using it for nonprofit educational use? We almost always answer that part yes. So that's an easy one. We must consider the nature of the copyrighted work. Okay, factual, creative, published or not. How is it intended to be used? And am I staying true to that intended use? 3, the amount or essence of the work used. Am I using a paragraph or am I using an entire chapter? And when we say use, we're talking about posting, recording ourselves reading, anything like that that's going to be posted for others to consume. And ultimately, 4, the effect on the market for creator. Am I, this creator made something that in most cases contributes to their livelihood. Is my use impacting their ability to do that? So for example, if I copy chapters out of a novel we adopted and put it onto Canvas, is that impacting the market for the creator? Well, we adopted certain copies of the novel. If I post that let's say your campus got 45 copies of a novel, but I posted on Canvas for 150 students to use, yes, I'm impacting the market for the creator because that's another 100 copies that aren't being purchased because I posted it online. So we have to be very aware of how we are using material. There are some myths with copyright. The big myths: if it's on the internet, it's fair use. That is a lie. A lot of stuff on the internet is breaking copyright law, believe it or not. So just because it's on the internet doesn't mean I can repost it into my material and it's game. If it's for education, it's for fair use. Well, no, again, it goes back to how we're using it and how much we're using. And lastly, if it's behind a login or password, it's safe. That is not true. Just because I posted on Curriculum Central doesn't keep you from downloading it. And if you download it, you can post it somewhere else. So is it really secure behind a password and login? No, it can be shared and posted illegally. So it's something to keep in mind. Again, I'm not going to read through this whole list, but this is kind of a more specific list of what is fair use and what works against fair use. A couple things I do want to point out. This big kind of paragraph here under what opposes, the generally accepted excerpt length for books and articles seems to be 10% or 100 words, or 1,000 words, I mean, whichever is less. Meaning I can usually get away with using a paragraph. A chapter is usually too much. So that's just something to file away when posting pieces to keep in mind. There was something
Jordan,
yes.
Quick question. It says the use will be occasional and limited. So if we were doing a novel, say Esperanza Rising, and I know the district has more than 100 copies for every 6th grade class, couldn't that fall under limited though, because you're only using it for a limited amount of time?
Okay, limited has a couple of things that work for it. One is, again, going back to length, how much are we posting? And 2, limited is time. If I'm using it this week, I can post my excerpts for this week, but they need to then be pulled down. They cannot be left on Canvas and then I use it again next year. It has to come off of the internet and be unpublished. And then next time I need it next year, if I'm going to use it again, that's a separate use. And again, I can use it for X days and then I need to pull it. We cannot leave things up. And this is going to throw a wrench in what a lot of you are wanting to do, but I'm going to tell you now, you cannot post a novel in Canvas. You can't do it. I'm telling you, we will have problems. That is, even if you have the hard copies on campus, scanning those copies in and posting them on the internet creates space for them to be downloaded and used elsewhere, and that will get us in trouble. So I know that is really frustrating having these novels on campus and we're in virtual, and you can try to do some sort of checkout drive-through system where kids check out books and take them home, but publishing them is going to cause problems. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I wish it was different, but in this virtual setting, that's something you're going to need to be aware of. But I do, here in a minute, I will have some options for you to help use texts where we're all still reading text, even if it's not the novels on campus.
Can you link someone reading the story?
If the story has been given permission to be linked, and we're going to get to that in a second as well. Yes. So again, this is another list. How do I use texts? This is actually, oh yes, we did just update this. So how do I use text? What can I use? First and foremost, if you want to do something with the text and you are not sure, contact the author or publisher, whoever has the copyright. You'd be surprised. A lot of them, if you say, hey, listen, my 6th grade class is reading through this text. They're getting their own novels, but I want to provide an audio reading so that my kids who need the extra help can listen while they read along. Try contacting the copyright holder. You'd be surprised. A lot of them during this virtual learning during the pandemic have given a little extra leeway, but you need permission. So contact them, reach out, see if you can get it. If you don't hear back, unfortunately, you have to assume the answer is no. It's a bit of a catch-22. When we're searching for things on Google, we want to make sure we're looking by licensing. There's a way to filter your Google search to make sure you're only finding things that you have permission to use. Use Creative Commons. Creative Commons has a search feature that allows you to search for things that you are going to have the ability to use and permission to use. Works in the public domain. What's in the public domain? I'm glad you asked. So anything published after 1977 will not fall into public domain until 70 years after the death of the author or for corporate works. It's recently been updated, actually. 95 years from the date of publication is one of our new copyright laws. If you ever want to know why the copyright laws keep changing, just look up whenever Mickey Mouse, his copyright is about to expire, because until the last year or so, it was actually 75 years instead of 95. And that has been increased because guess who just came up for copyright renewal? Mickey Mouse. And so Disney went to court and all the laws got changed. So again, come back to this and check. I know this is dry and not exciting, but if you find it interesting, come back and check this out. Canvas considerations, link to material. Now, it is always better to link out than to post your own electronic copy. You can post a link to things. If someone else has posted it, it may still be illegal, but at least they posted it. Or maybe I'm using an article on a newspaper's website that they give people 3 articles a month that you can go and use. Okay, we're going to use this article. You can link out to that article. Do not post it for yourself. Don't download it or copy it into a Word document and post it. Link to it. Make sure that it's related to what's being taught. This kind of is limiting because, oh, I can't just post this really fun thing. No, not unless you can describe how it ties into what we're learning. Limit access to the students enrolled in the course and remove it when the course is over. So this goes back to Ms. Richards' question earlier about posting things, limited time. I can post it while my kids are using it, and when we're done with it, I need to pull it. Notify students that texts are being made available, like, hey, this is posted, you can use it, or other resources that we'll talk about here in a minute. And then check what rights are given as we use things. Can we link to someone else reading the story, such as TeacherTube or YouTube? Again, a link to it is better than posting it. And I would just, again, be discerning and be careful. Because sometimes those people who are linking don't have permission to do what they're doing either. So just be careful with what you're linking out to. Okay. I promise I'm getting to the things of stuff you can use, and it's coming right now. We're going to look at Unit 1, and then I'm going to talk about some of the tools you can use. I apologize in advance. We may not get to the small group planning stuff, and I apologize if we don't, but I'm trying to still save you some time. Unit 1, we're talking about Unit 1. How are we going to start the year? Unit 1 is all about the reading and writing processes. How and why do I read and write? Okay. This is different in years past. What we've done is we've jumped straight into narrative literature and fiction and literary nonfiction, and we jump straight into genre study. TRS takes a little different approach by saying, okay, what we're going to do in Unit 1 is we're actually going to work on the way our kids think and process information, and that by laying that foundation, we're going to set them up to be successful for the entire year because they already have the skills. So this is actually from the overview of your IFD. This unit bundles student expectations that address basic skills required for effective reading, writing, and discussion with a special emphasis on comprehension and response. All that saying is we want to lay the foundation for reading and writing and thinking for the entire year. So in reading, we're looking at, we're practicing internal reading strategies, annotating, asking questions, making connections and inferences, how they respond to the text. With writing in this first bundle, we're focusing on planning and drafting. Just how do we brainstorm and put together a plan, and then how do we execute that plan and stay focused in what we write? And collaboration, we want to put them into situations where they have to discuss things, they have to listen to others, and ultimately make connections and find common ground with their peers. Now, some things that you will notice as you click through the IFD, but the IFD doesn't specify a genre, and I apologize for the typo. The IFD doesn't specify a genre. You're right. The IFD does not tell you what genre to work with because the IFD and the curriculum does not want you to pick a genre for this unit. It's not about genre. It's not about getting them to understand plot. It's about understanding how to read and respond to text. We're building inferencing skills. We're helping them notice just what is the big idea that you find in this passage? What are the interesting details that the author placed here for you to pick up on? Now, the great part about this means you can use any genre of text. I can use a fiction text. I can use an informational text. But we're not teaching the genre characteristics yet. And I know it took me about 2 months to wrap my brain around this unit. But the more I read it, the more I liked it. Because again, these skills you're teaching up front are going to benefit the kids the entire rest of the year. So if I'm not supposed to teach a genre, what do I have students read? I'm glad you asked. You can model with any text you want. Now, going back to our discussions about, well, what am I supposed to use to model? You just talked to us about copyright and all the things we can't do. You can use any text in HMH is open, fair game. We have the copyright permission to place that and use it however we want to use it. So that would be the first place I would send you is to HMH. Any of those texts are fair use, and I would use that to model. Then for the kids, the text and our standards, 6.4, I believe is the standard number, calls for students to self-select and independently read a text. And it is terrifying as a teacher to think that my kids are going to be reading different things and I'm not going to know exactly what they're reading. That's okay. It's okay. I see the question for HMH online. We'll get there in just a second. There are a couple different options for self-selecting text. One, there's actually a self-selected text set for each unit in HMH. So that's one way to do it. You can tell kids, hey, go here, you pick one of these texts. If you insist on your students all reading the same text, you could assign a text from HMH. However, remember, your standard in this unit calls for self-selection. And so we really want to make sure that that's happening. There are also library ebook resources to allow your students an opportunity to read. The first option is Sora. Sora ebooks is one of the bigger resources through the library services website. The downside to Sora is that there's only one copy per book per campus. So if your kid gets in and wants to read this book, they're all going to be reading different things for sure. But it's an option. It's a good resource for books. However, if you're wanting to do something like lit circles, Sora may not be the answer for you. We also have Teen Cloud books or Tumble books. It's a little more difficult to search through Tumble books, there's no list. They can't just scroll down an alphabetized list. However, it is searchable. So you could type in a book title or by genre, and you should be able to get what you're looking for. There are multiple copies of books on Team Cloud. So I could do lit circles. I could group my kids in groups of 4, and these 4 kids are going to read this book, and these 4 kids are going to read this book, and then they just need to go check that book out from Team Cloud or Tumble Books. So that is another option. Also, EBSCO ebooks. EBSCO works very similarly to Tumble Books or Team Cloud. Again, there's not a alphabetized list, but it is searchable, and there are multiple copies available, so you can do lit circles there. Again, also, if you just want your kids reading the same books, you can talk to your administrators about doing a drive-through line where kids can come check out one of the novels. Again, I would encourage you not to post the novel in Canvas for copyright reasons, but if your campus okays checking out the books, you could do that. I know my daughter's junior high is having them read a novel, and I believe they're going to do something similar to the drive-through checkout. So that is, but that'll be a campus decision for you to do that. HMH. So HMH is accessible through Rapid ID. You can, there's an app, it's called Ed, My Friend in, or Your Friend, My Friend in Learning. You can access it through there, log in with your AISD credentials. You will not see access if you are a new teacher or even returning teachers. Your access may be somewhat stunted right now. It hinges on being rostered in teams. If you don't have your class rosters, you won't see any access for about 24 hours because that's how the HMH system works. And I know it's not convenient, but that is a key component of what they do. Is it talks to teams, teams uploads the class rosters, and then you can access it by class. But once you are in, you can just go through the units and look at the different texts available and work from there. Most of the texts also have different assignments, different learning components you can assign to kids as well. So,
what about Capstone? We have a question about that.
I will need to look into Capstone a little further. That's not one I've used a lot. So when I'm looking at if ReadWorks made it on the approved list, I will look up the text selection in Capstone. Also, if you have any of these questions and want a quicker answer than what I'm able to provide, I would, for anything on these ebooks or library resources, contact your campus librarian. I live across the street from one here in AISD, and she is just dying for ways to help teachers right now. So contact your librarians, and they can do a lot to help you out with these resources. And in a lot of ways have used them more frequently than I have. I'm so glad you asked about Teachers Pay Teachers. Teachers Pay Teachers is something that I would be careful using for a couple of reasons. First, some of the Teachers Pay Teachers material is not aligned to our state standards. It's really fun activities. It's a really pretty cute graphic organizer. But then when you look at the actual work being done, it doesn't align to the standard. And that's problematic when we're measured, our students are measured by their ability to show understanding of the standard. And then the material we're buying and giving to them doesn't match up. That's a waste of your money that you're spending, and I hate for you to do that. The second piece is I would just be careful with it. I would consider contacting the seller. If you're going to try and upload it into Canvas, I would make sure that the permissions you're paying for allows you to post electronically. A lot of those sellers intend you to print it off and to use it that way. So I would just verify that what I'm paying for allows me to post it in the digital realm. Otherwise, again, copyright could be really rough. So be careful with that. Performance assessments, I'm trying to get through this quickly and give time for questions and things. We mentioned performance assessments earlier. This is a component of the IFD with TEKS Resource System. What a performance assessment is, it basically, they've given you some tasks you can do after you've done the initial learning. Some of them for during learning, but a lot of them are meant to be done after you've done initial learning on a concept. Your first one, for example, says you will utilize foundational reading comprehension skills to read and analyze a fiction, nonfiction text of personal interest to you, meaning the student, with annotations and short responses. I snipped this, but if you saw the entire page in the IFD, It would then go down to explain what kids are doing with the text. It's bullet pointed. Kids should highlight critical ideas or annotate critical ideas in the text. They should jot down 3 mental images they get while they're reading through the text, things like that. And so that's how the performance assessments work. The rest of the performance assessments for this unit are here, just so you can see them and get a feel for it. So like I said, in assessment 2, it talks about questions for discussion. What types of text do I read in school? It's basically your kids having a discussion around what they like to read and how they read and how they feel about reading, but to facilitate that discussion piece, which is important because in assessment 4, our kids are going to plan and write an essay describing exactly that, what they like to read, why they struggle with reading, what they like to write, why they struggle with writing. And so those discussions are going to lend themselves to setting up that essay. So these performance assessments are really, really valuable tools. I like them. I think some of them are better than others. But if you're looking for a way for kids to demonstrate learning besides just picking random answers off of multiple choice, these are some good ways to do it. And again, they all come with rubrics. So you know exactly what you're looking for in student responses.
We have a couple of questions in the chat.
Again, if a librarian gives you an ebook, I would clarify with the librarian the permissions of that ebook. Okay, ebooks are still subject to copyright. So most of them are not intended to be published to the masses. So I would verify that the permission in that ebook in the library resource allows you to post it like that. It may be that the kids just need to go and check out their own versions and open them up themselves. Can HMH link through Canvas? We're working on figuring out if HMH can link through Canvas. In the spring, it did not. But we're trying to, HMH is allegedly working on a way for the two to speak together. Right now, what I would recommend doing is the students have access to HMH through their Rapid ID platform and all those apps. So they can, basically, so they can go in and access that. You can assign it through the platform and then put your instructions in Canvas. And then the kids will be able to go to HMH and the assignment will be already in their profile for them to access. My principal wants us to post Zoom sessions every day. So again, that would be posting. So if you're trying to read a portion of a novel, again, that's where we have to go back and think through copyright. How much am I reading? Do I have permission to post myself reading the novel? And that's some things you need to consider. Or give the kids a link that's on the screen that they can write down and link out to the publisher website that already has a read aloud of the book or something like that. No, when I've logged into HMH, it has looked very similar to how it has in the past. So we can do some further digging to see if it's changed up, but a lot of it has looked the same to me as I've used it here in the last couple of months. All right, summative assessments. Bundle assessments don't exist anymore. We mentioned that earlier. TRS doesn't have bundles. However, there will be an assessment creator Canvas course where you can actually learn how to generate your own assessments, save them and edit them, and it's a pretty useful tool. So I would consider consulting that. We're also providing unit summative assessments. These are lengthy assessments and meant to be taken at the end of the unit, not as checkpoints. Those are housed on Curriculum Central, and I promised I'd show you that, and I will before I send you off. And the assessment calendar. The assessment calendar is found on the Research and Accountability Department's page at AISD.net. This is just a schedule, a testing schedule for you to see when the district tests are coming. It's important to keep that in mind when you're planning out your units to make sure you've left yourself some time on these assessments. Curriculum Central is, again, looks like this. I guess this is as good a time as any for me to show you the things. You've logged into Curriculum Central and gone to the 6th grade tab. sixth grade language arts. First of all, we've added a link here for you to go directly to TRS. So that should help out some. So we have all of our resources posted for you. These assessment timelines are coming down and new ones will be posted shortly. Assessments. So this is where you're going to locate all of the assessments. No, the CAs and benchmarks won't be posted here, but the analysis tools for those tests will be. Click on Unit 1, and inside of Unit 1, Unit 1 does not have an assessment. That's why you can't see anything here. So I'll click on Unit 2. If you click into Unit 2, you'll notice the summative assessment is right here. And if you click on it, it'll open up and you'll see it. Ta-da! Beautiful. Right here. Just a note, my unit summative assessments and the CAs work largely from release STAR passages. So I would say for this year, try to use the assessment creator whenever possible to make your own assessments, just because we don't want our data skewed by doubling up on passages. Unless your campus is not using a unit summative, in which case you could use that passage. I would just be careful. We don't want to dilute the test results because we taught the passage and then it showed up later. Oh, that's this. So the unit resources, you'll click on the unit and it'll open up to this. And inside of unit resources, again, you'll see the ELAR learning progression and companion document, as well as the SLAR documents and 2 resources folders. So we asked about where the companion document was. Here it is. You click on it and it'll open and you can download the Word document to your computer or just view it in this window. So, and there it is. All the blue are linked documents. They'll take you directly to the corresponding resources or websites on Curriculum Central. The resources tab looks a little something like this. Basically, it's just all the documents that are linked in the companion piece. So this is a chart I made for helping kids self-select a text. It's got a list of different genres they could choose. Are they wanting to learn? Are they wanting to be entertained? How do I know if a book is too hard or too easy? So these are just some components, some things that you have access to on Curriculum Central. All right, hopefully that answers our questions we had earlier about how to access those things. Again, resources, Curriculum Central has those documents you see listed. Library resources, destiny.aisd.net is how to access the library platform, and you just pick your campus and go. And again, resources in Canvas, just make sure you have copyright permission for that. Oh my goodness, I am sorry we rushed and we don't have the time for the breakout groups. There's so much I wanted you to be able to look at. However, I would encourage you to look through these resources on your own, look at them with your campus teams and or coaches, and I am always available. We'll be posting our office hours that I'll be online and available to you soon each week. And again, you can always email me, jfergus, Jfergus 3 at aisd.net. We were supposed to have time to do that. So now I want to open it up for questions, comments, and concerns. But while I do that, there's some things I need for you to do. So on this slide, that tiny URL is the attendance link. If you want credit for being here, you're going to need to go there and fill out the attendance form. And then we also have a feedback survey for you. You'll go to the bit.ly AISD feedback and enter that event code, and it will let you go through and fill out feedback on this. I don't get better unless I know how it went for you. While you're doing that, I want to again open it up for questions. It was a sprint through this information, and frankly, I want to make sure you get what you need. So while you're filling that out, you can drop questions in the chat or feel free to speak up and chime in, and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you, Rachel, for dropping that link in. The attendance link just got dropped in the chat by Rachel, if you need it. And I will drop the bit.ly link for the feedback as well.